welcome back to the Second and Two podcast. I'm your host, TB, and I'm joined by my co-host, producer extraordinaire today, Jody. What's up, Joe?
Sir, we're back. I know you had some trouble the last couple days.
Dude, the storms. It was storming out here,
yeah.
knocking out the Wi-Fi, but we're back. Wi-Fi's back. I've rejoined the Earth as we know it. I was
how
living in
was
the Stone Ages.
what was going on outside your house? Like, how was that looking?
So, I mean, there was a few nights ago, there was a huge storm. It just got really windy, and it stormed for a little bit, and it knocked out the power for like, maybe 10, 15 minutes. It wasn't too
Uh-huh.
crazy, and then the storm kinda passed. The storm only came through for, like, maybe an hour,
Uh-huh.
but, like, it got really crazy for, like, a 10, 15-minute period where it knocked out the power, and we didn't have power for, like, 15 minutes, and then it was fine. The problem was the Wi-Fi never came back. It just, like,
Yeah, for real.
the Wi-Fi was knocked out. We didn't have any Wi-Fi. That was the real problem. We didn't have any Wi-Fi for, like, 2 days.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah,
it was
modem at
actually
first.
it was actually, sorta interesting functioning without Wi-Fi because you were like, "Okay, so what do we do?"
Yeah,
Um,
especially if
you
you don't
realize
have cable, like
dude,
you can't watch a single streaming service.
you realize how reliant on that thing. So it was like, all right, so I'll give you a couple of seconds of this is totally unrelated to our
Yeah.
podcast, but since you asked, I'll give you 30 seconds of a good story, of some
Let's
funny
hear it.
stuff. So number one, you can't stream anything.
Yep.
Then you go on and you're like, oh, my dad even said, he's like, you want to play some Xbox? I was like, all right, yeah, let's play some Xbox. Like I'm staying with my parents right now, and
Yeah.
time being, I was hanging out with my dad, and we're like, all right, yeah, let's play some Xbox. So we get on there, and of course, every game that you don't have the physical disc for, you got to be connected
Yeah.
to online to
Yep.
play. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, we do have this game. Okay, let's put it in. Oh, it's not downloaded
The
on the
game's broke.
Xbox. And guess what?
Oh,
You need
no.
Wi-Fi to download the game onto the Xbox to even play it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it was like, so you just went through all this stuff, and we're like, wow, you can't even like play a game on the Xbox without Wi-Fi
Yeah,
nowadays. Like you literally,
that's
it's
insane.
like almost impossible. And then uh, we found this old stack of DVDs that he still has that
Yeah.
haven't been they were like dusty, and it was like, "Well,
Yeah.
glad you have these." Like literally our Xbox became a DVD
A
player
DVD
for a
player?
couple
Yeah.
days and just watched like old movies that we had on DVD. That's all we could watch. It was pretty funny. Ended up doing a puzzle
Oh,
to
how many
to pass
pieces?
the time. 1,000-piece
Ooh,
mosaic. Real tough, let me tell
yeah,
you.
sounds like it.
Yeah. So that was the last couple days for me, and then today we were restored to regular times, and it was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what it was like. Yeah. So interesting couple days here.
Yeah, we'll say at least on the good side of things, you had, your lights up and everything, because if you didn't have
Mhm.
that, then it's like you gotta bust out some candles, you gotta figure out what you're doing with your food, or
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
lights even, like some,
Definitely.
lights with some batteries in there. That's crazy, man. One last note before we get into these teams in the NFC North. I will say if you had a 360 or like a PlayStation like 2, you could get those things rolling
that's
quick.
that's the one. That's the one that's when you need that. Exactly. That's when you need that. Yeah. The Xbox. I don't know. I think they have the X or whatever. The
Yeah, yeah. The
they got
1 and
the
the X, those are the newer ones.
yeah, yeah, and they have a PS4 or something like
Yeah,
that. I
5,
mean, but
bro.
like
That's the newest.
5, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, as you could tell, not a huge gamer over here.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
But when I do, I'm good. Just keep that in mind.
What but you be on what, Madden and, 2K or what?
Yeah, a little Madden 2K, maybe some Halo, some Call of
Oh.
Duty. I don't know what else. I don't know. My sister had some other games. I can't remember, but those are the games off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Um, we got the NFC North today, though. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Good
Uh, I got some
interesting
tidbits
division
for
for
you.
sure. Let's hear them.
Okay. All right. So number one, Wikipedia says it's nicknamed the Black and Blue Division for the rough and tough rivalry games between the
Oh.
teams. It does lay claim to the oldest rivalry in the NFL, the Bears and the Packers.
Yeah, makes sense.
The Bears currently
The
owned
Bears.
by Aaron Rodgers. Oh, wait, sorry.
I mean,
Um,
he still is. He's just not in Green Bay no more. So, you know,
yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, the so I wanted to point out the Packers have lost in one, two, three, four,
Super Bowls is this we're counting up.
five. Have lost in five of the last six NFC Championship games they've gone to.
Sheesh.
Um, the only one that they won was when they
When they
ended up
won the Super Bowl.
winning the Super Bowl. Yeah, and and that was against the Bears that year in the NFC
Oh,
Championship, and the Bears actually won the
he
division.
owns
They had to
them.
go to Chicago. Yeah, but so yeah, they've lost actually four straight in 2014, 2016, 2019, and 2020.
Wow.
So the for whatever reason, the Packers just can't quite get past the NFC Championship game. This division is one that has been won mostly by the Packers in recent years, but the Vikings won it in 2015, 17, and most recently in 22. The
Uh huh.
Bears won it in 2018 and 2010. All the other years that I didn't name in this last since 2010 were all dominated by the Packers.
Makes sense.
Um, in this decade, or in this century, I should say, since 2000 is where I'm
Yeah.
going with the uh, the Vikings, Bears, and Packers have all won the division, but the Lions have not.
Mm.
Can you name the last time the Lions won this division?
If I had to guess, it was back when Barry Sanders was there, but I don't even know what year that was.
And not a bad guess. We got to go all the way back to 1993. So not
Okay.
quite as bad as maybe the Browns
Yeah.
winning their division, but pretty tough. It's been a while. The Lions also, unfortunately, have one of the longest playoff winning droughts. It's been a
Uh
while
huh.
since they won a playoff game. This is, from that standpoint, interesting division. Um, kind of like with the Browns,
Just
the
plague.
Buccaneers. The Buccaneers were a part of this when it was like the NFC Central, and they've won the division more recently than the
Is
Lions
Tom
have.
Brady?
In no, yeah, he is that old, but no. In 1999, the Bucks won it. So yeah, this is it's a tough division for the Lions. I haven't won it in a while, but interestingly enough, going into this year, they are a pretty decent favorite to come in and
Yeah.
maybe win the
True.
division. So maybe we'll see if they can change their luck this year. I'm sure Lions fans are sitting there really really hoping that's the case, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely trending in the right direction for sure. Dan Campbell got in there, gave him some good culture. I would say you could probably compare it to Heat culture at the moment, maybe,
Oh, little
you know.
Detroit culture, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Dan Campbell,
Lion,
bro.
Lion culture, Motor City, Dan Campbell. And speaking of those Lions, that's who we're talking about first.
They finished last year at 9-8. Fun fact, I predicted that last year, and
You did?
so that was interesting. They didn't look like it was gonna be pretty off rip though. They were struggling hard, and they caught some legs. But they
Yeah.
finished second in division, and then they just missed the playoffs with the 9-8 finish.
Oh, it was a heartbreaker. I wanted the Lions in there.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
I wanted them to get in instead of Seattle, but Seattle got in over them. So they did actually lose some interesting veterans this offseason. I think Michael Brockers was a guy that they were, probably you could argue they were paying too much for the production he was giving them, but he was I think an interesting part of their kind of rebuild here with Dan Campbell. He was part of the trade that brought Jared Goff over. Um, and so I think, or actually might have been a separate trade if I'm remembering right. Same offseason though.
Mhm.
And a guy that, their GM Brad Holmes, when he was with the Rams, obviously knew very well, understood he was a culture setter, guy who's been in the league for quite some time. And he came in and I think he gave them a veteran presence. He's no longer there. They lost safety to Sean Elliott. They traded running back DeAndre Swift as well as lost running back Jamal Williams in free agency. So different running
Mhm.
back room. Although I would argue it ends up kind of looking very similar with Montgomery and our guy Jahmyr Gibbs, guys who have kind of similar, like
Yeah.
comparable skill sets to Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. They also traded cornerback Jeff Okudah, their first round pick from a few years ago.
Yep.
Um, and then they, in addition to that, they lost receiver DJ Chark, linebacker Josh Woods, and cornerback Mike Hughes. But they did add some guys. They added Cam Sutton at corner. Big name in safety, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, coming off the Super Bowl appearance with the Eagles.
Mhm.
They added, like I said, running back David Montgomery from in division rival Chicago. Cornerback Emmanuel Mosley, receiver Marvin Jones, and guard Graham Glasgow. So they did add some pieces that I think will help offset some of the losses. But I think where they really made their money this year was in the draft.
Yeah, as you mentioned already, they picked up our guy Jahmyr Gibbs in that first round at the running back position, and they picked up Jack Campbell as well in that first round with their 2 picks.
Which, I think a lot of people, it was much criticized, and maybe for good reason, maybe not. I like both those guys. I think they're both going to be good players. Did you have to draft them when you did? We had this discussion on our draft pod.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but if you really like two players, I don't mind you. I think a lot of people criticize this Lions draft. I just may be in that minority that I loved it because I love what they did later too. They got tight end Sam Laporta.
Mhm.
Um, I
Yeah.
just saw, I don't know if you saw this, but they had the tight end U
Yep,
with
yep.
George Kittle, Travis Kelce. Did you see what Kittle said about Sam Laporta?
I think did Kittle go to Iowa?
Yeah.
Or okay, yeah. I seen him on, or I heard him on Part of My Take. He said that he's a great, like, he fits that culture for sure. I don't know what you're talking about, but that's what I
Yeah,
heard from him.
he was talking about that, and he said he thinks like they got a steal, and that basically Sam
Yeah.
Laporta, he felt like he was one of the better tight ends at tight end U already, and he's definitely going to be the best rookie in that class. And remember, when we scouted the tight ends, I loved the tight end class in general, but Sam Laporta
Yeah.
was a guy we really liked him, and so I think getting him where they got him, steal. I love Brian Branch
Mhm.
out of
Yep.
Alabama. I think he's a steal where they got him, and then they also got Hendon Hooker, who
Oh
right now,
yeah.
worst case scenario, is a backup quarterback for Goff. Best case scenario, he ends up being the quarterback of the future, right? So, like,
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
they got 5 guys who are all going to contribute at key positions. I know people don't think
Yeah.
of backup quarterback as a key position, but I would tell you it is,
Yeah.
from that standpoint. So even if Hendon Hooker doesn't play, he's giving you something valuable in terms of depth at quarterback. But worst case scenario, you've got 4 guys I think that are all going to start or give you at the very worst case like real reps,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Campbell, Branch, Laporta, and Gibbs. So I really like what they did.
Yeah. I forgot they had that many dudes that we talked about. So, I mean, I
Hmm.
just got more juice for those draft editions they picked up. And the people that made those decisions were looking at general manager Brad Holmes. Of course, we talked about him already. Head coach Dan Campbell, offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, and then D coordinator being Aaron Glenn.
I'd just like to say too here, like I don't know the last time the Lions went into an offseason and really maintained stability at those 4 positions.
True.
GM, head coach, OC, DC, right?
Yeah.
Like
Facts.
it's been a while since you could see this kind of stability for this long in this organization. It's a sign that they're doing things the right way. I think
Mhm.
um, a lot of people were kind of like, I don't know about this Dan Campbell guy when they hired him, and he's talking about biting kneecaps and all that, and
Hey,
um,
man. Just let the man live, man.
yeah, I think they've done some really good stuff. I mean, the fact that they went 9-8 last year, was awesome, and it feels like they've maybe turned a corner. Obviously, we can't praise him until he actually does it this year, but it feels like they're getting there. I think them
Yeah.
retaining Ben
No, I
Johnson this
agree.
offseason, he flirted with some head coaching opportunities and ultimately decided to stay. I think says a lot, and that was huge for them. I think Aaron Glenn found something later down the stretch of the year that we'll talk about defensively that could be huge for them. So in general, I just think they're set to have a much better year. So I'm excited for these Lions. But kind of looking down the depth chart, first thing you look at when you look at the Lions, the thing that stands out, their offensive line is right there with like the Eagles in the NFC. I think
Uh-huh.
they're right there across the board. Taylor Decker at left tackle has just been a solid player for some time now. They even have Jermaine Ifedi backing him up to give them a little depth. A guy who's experienced that played left tackle in the league. Jonah Jackson at left guard, Frank Ragnow at center, and Graham Glasgow, who they picked up in the free agency as a guy who could, be a backup center or swing over to guard even. Halai Vatai at the other guard, and then Panay Sewell obviously has been a monster since he came
Beast,
to the
bro.
league at right tackle. So I just think they have a really good front five offensively that allows them to do a lot of things they want to do. Um, Obviously, Goff at quarterback has been considerably better than what he was in the last year with the Rams.
Yeah.
Um,
Facts.
Nate Sudfeld backing him up, as well as Hendon Hooker coming off the ACL in the draft, being that third quarterback right now. They have a deep running back room. Love David Montgomery coming over from the Bears.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, I talked about Gibbs. I know this is where people are going to say, dude, you use the 12th pick on a running back who's not even going to start because you already paid another running back in free agency. I get it, but I think that those two are premier weapons, and you can get both of them on the field in different ways. I think they
Mhm.
will. I trust Ben Johnson based on what he showed last year to be unique in what he does in terms of getting these guys the ball and making it worth the 12th overall pick and worth the
Yeah.
$6 million they paid David
Exactly.
Montgomery in free agency. And I think the way they want to run the football, those guys will get plenty of touches, both of
Oh
them.
yeah. That's for
So
sure.
I also like sneaky name that I like is their third running back. He's a guy came out of Minnesota this year, was a big time name in college football, and that's Mohammed Ibrahim. He's not a guy a whole lot of people have talked about, but he's a guy that, like I said, at least in terms of an NFL sense, but everyone loved him in college at Minnesota. Kind of went
Okay.
under the radar in the draft. Sneaky guy, sneaky name. If either one of those other two guys gets hurt, don't be surprised if Mohammed Ibrahim is a guy who gets some carries. I like him. I think he's a good player.
Yeah, I'll have to look him up after this. See what he looks like.
Yeah, yeah. So they brought back Marvin Jones Jr. Even though they lost DJ Chark, they sort of replaced him with Marvin Jones. Bringing him back, he was a one-time a Detroit Lion. It left was when in Jacksonville. They brought him back. He goes with Sam Laporta at tight end, who's replacing. They traded Hawkinson last season.
Yeah.
Now they get Laporta and kind of fill that role. Obviously, the guy who's been awesome, Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot. He's a dude.
Yeah.
Khalif
For
Raymond gives
sure.
him a little depth, backing him up. At the Z, a guy they picked up off waivers last year from Tennessee, but just has great chemistry with Jared Goff. He's another former Ram. Brad Holmes has made a living in Detroit, bringing in some of these former Ram guys. He's been
Yeah.
awesome. Josh Reynolds, he loves Goff. He'll be there until Jamison Williams comes back from his suspension. And
Mm.
who knows? We'll see what happens with Jamison Williams. This is 2 years in a row now. Unfortunately for him, first 2 years of his NFL career, he's not going to get full seasons. He's going to start the year not playing. Last year due to injury, this year due to the suspension.
Yeah.
Um, but it gives Josh Reynolds a shot to play really well again. So we'll see what happens with that. Defensively, the Lions bring back Aiden Hutchinson, who proved to be worthy of where he was drafted last year. Had a really good rookie season. Inside, you have Isaiah Buggs, Alum McNeil, Christian Covington. On the other edge, you've got John Kaminsky and former high pick Josh Pascal at linebacker. They boast a really good linebacker group. Alex Anzalone, and now the newly drafted Jack Campbell at Mike. You still have Malcolm Rodriguez, everyone's favorite guy from Hard Knocks, Rodrigo, and then Derek Barnes as well. I'm sure they'll find some ways to maybe continually play Rodrigo with Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone. You know, there may be some true three linebacker stuff that they do.
Is that the
Um,
dude with the long hair?
Anzalone,
I don't know. One of them.
yeah, he's got the long blonde hair.
Yeah,
Rodrigo was
yeah.
like the 5th round rookie that
Oh,
everyone
okay.
liked last year.
Gotcha,
He
gotcha.
was everyone's favorite in Hard Knocks. Good player, had a pretty good rookie year. So I'm sure they'll still find different ways to play him. And then in the slot, I think that's where Brian Branch is going to fit in at the slot
Okay.
corner. We watched a lot of his film. Remember, we
Yeah, yeah.
evaluated him as a safety, but we really liked him as a slot corner. Then they bring in the 2 corners that they signed in free agency, Emmanuel Mosley and Cameron Sutton on the outside. Inside, it's an interesting deal. You've got C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He can also play kind of that slot corner, so maybe some interesting stuff that they can do with him and Brian Branch, who can both play safety or slot corner. And
Uh-huh.
then Joseph Kirby and Tracy Walker the third are kind of in a position battle, I think, for that other safety spot. Maybe even Ifidu Melanowafu, Melifonwu.
There you
Sorry,
go. No,
that
it
that was
sounds like
just
a handful. I don't blame you.
Melifonwu. He's a good player, but yeah, tough name. So sorry to him for that. But yeah, the Lions, I think a little bit more depth than last year, despite some of the losses. Still, maybe not as much front end talent. There's still some stuff that there's still some things they can improve on. I think their secondary is much different this year, just because it struggled last year. They should have 4 out of 5 new starters there,
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's always
which
tough.
which makes sense, but it's also, that you can't just snap your fingers, bring different guys in and it's suddenly going to be great. So there's probably going to still
True.
be some growing pains there. But I do like some of the upgrades they made. I do think they have a little bit more depth this season. So I'm excited to watch them.
Yeah, my one thing I'll say is going back to the running back room, I want to see what they do with them because I know last year they had DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, as you talked about, and those dudes. It was like Swift was down; he was the dude just breaking runs, and then Williams would be in the trenches, like getting those like couple yard runs for the touchdowns. So I love to see how they could like do something similar to that this year, or how they like combat having more dudes that probably have to use stride to get in the open field as opposed to getting the nitty gritty yards, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, taking a look at their schedule this year, they start off hot. Week 1, they got the very first game of the year, and it's not easy. It's going to be against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. It's going to be that Thursday night first game. That's always not just the opponent, but that very first game of the NFL season, kicking it off. That's tough.
yep.
Let's see, week 2, they got the Seahawks at home. Seahawks got a long trip. That's unfortunate. Week 3, they got the Falcons at home. Then they got their first divisional game, week 4 in Green Bay. Thursday night game right there as well. Now that one, we'll see what happens with Jordan Love as we'll get to that eventually, but that's my biggest question of the whole thing. Week 5, they got the Panthers at home. That's going to be, Bryce Young coming up to Detroit. It
Hmm.
might not be easy for the man. Week 6 and 7, they're on the road. They play the Bucks in week 6. The Bucks are coming off their bye week. And then week 7, they got the Ravens. Oh, wait, did I say they're at home? That's on me. They travel out to Tampa Bay week
Mm,
6, playing the Bucks. And then week 7, they're on the road in Baltimore playing the Ravens. That one, could be fun and scrappy. Week 8, they got the Raiders on a Monday night game. I will say they
mm.
do have a lot of primetime games. I'm
Yeah, they
assuming
do.
that they think that, the Lions have something to prove this year, so that's nice. Then following that Monday night game, they got their bye week 9. Week 10, they go out to LA and play the Chargers. And they get a couple home games here in the division. They play the Bears week 11, and then week 12, they got the Packers. Thursday night, or Thursday football on Thanksgiving, the good old
Yep.
classic right there. One of the many teams that get to have that every year. Then they got a couple away games. They got the Saints week 13 on the road and the Bears in Chicago. This time when they playing the Bears are coming off their bye. I will say it's kind of wild. We got into week 15 and no Vikings until the very end. That's kind of a weird way to put
Yeah,
this.
it is a weird deal.
But yeah, the week 15 they played Denver in Detroit, so they stay at home. Then they got 2 away games here. They got the Vikings finally playing them week 16. Then they got the Cowboys week 17 on a Sunday night game. That could be fun. That could have some playoff implications at that point. They're
Yeah,
seeding things. Then week
yeah,
18 they close out against the Vikings at home.
yeah. I think looking at this, their schedule is pretty. I would say evenly, displaced throughout. But
Yeah,
um, I kind of looked at their different stretches, different stuff. Honestly, where I landed, I think their hardest stretch is week 13 to 18 to finish the year,
yeah,
just because they have
that's what I was thinking.
4 out of 6 on the road. Those road
Mhm.
games being the Saints, the Bears coming off a bye, so you got to go on the road, and the team you're playing is coming off their bye. You got to go to the Vikings, you got to go to the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and then your home games are the Broncos and the Vikings. So I would say, that 5 out of those 6 games are against teams that are going to be likely around playoff positioning. And then the Bears, having to get them on the road coming off their bye, that's tough. So I think that stretch is pretty hard. And then their kind
Yeah.
of easier stretch, I would say you're talking right before the bye, like week 3
Mhm.
through 8.
Yeah,
The
no doubt.
Falcons, the Packers on Thursday Night Football early in the season with Jordan Love, the Panthers, the Bucks. They do get them coming off the bye. So it's a little harder, but I don't think the Buccaneers are going to be very good. The Ravens, that's a tough game in that stretch, but probably the only one that you would say is really tough. And
Yeah,
then
for sure.
the Raiders on Monday Night Football. I would say that the nice thing for them is they get the Packers earlier in the year this year. Last year they
True.
finished in Lambeau. This year they get them in week 4 on a Thursday night. Kind of a fun scheduling quirk. They play the Packers twice on Thursdays
Yeah.
this year.
I just noticed that too, right before you said it.
Yeah, they actually play 3 Thursday night games this year because they
Yeah.
play on the Thursday opener, they have a true Thursday night game, and then they play on
Mhm.
Thanksgiving. So they have 3 different instances where they're gonna play Thursdays this year. So they have a kind of an interesting schedule in general. I would say that they have a tough opening 2 weeks with the Chiefs
Oh, well,
and
that's for sure.
Seahawks.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's a schedule that's actually pretty easy in general because it's pretty well laid throughout.
Uh-huh.
And I think they get to play the NFC South. That helps.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think based on that, we can talk predictions at this point, but I think we kind of see it very similarly. Yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah. We both had them at 10-7. I mean, we could probably pick out the ones that we think are definitely gonna be tough, like probably that Cowboys game, the Chiefs game. Ravens for sure. I'm assuming one of the Packers games, probably that Week 12 one, because at that point Jordan Love will have more growth with the team. Let's
yeah.
see, probably the Saints even. We could probably throw that in there.
I think going to New Orleans is always tough. Yeah, in
Yeah,
LA, in Baltimore, those are at Kansas City, at Baltimore, at LA, at the Saints, at the Cowboys. Those are probably their 5 really tough games, and I think the
yeah,
rest of them are all very, very winnable. I think they won't have as tough a start this year like they did last year. Be a little bit better.
yeah, yeah,
I would say that those 8 games they play before the bye, I think 4-4 is really realistic. Maybe 6-3 down the stretch out of the bye to kind of finish off
uh-huh.
10-7. I see the Lions as 10-7. I think they're going to be a playoff team this year.
Yeah. I agree. That's one thing we got to look forward to. All right. Well, last year, the defense wasn't looking too nice. They were one of the worst. I think they were probably like in the 31st at some point in time with like points allowed. What do you think they could do better this year, especially with bringing in all those dudes to help beef up the secondary?
Well, I mean, I think that's one part, right? Is they
Uh-huh.
have some different players. So in general, sometimes the answer is get better players. Sometimes it's change what you're doing schematically. Sometimes it's get better coaches. Whatever the
Yeah.
answers may be. I think in this case, the Lions actually found something I was going through the numbers and I was really looking at things. So in the first 8 weeks of the season last year, their record was 1-6.
Oh,
They were allowing 32 points per game. And I noticed that they were playing man coverage an average of 46% of the time per game.
whoa.
So they were
That's a lot.
playing a lot of man. Yeah, they were playing almost 50% man and giving up 32 points per game, right?
Oh,
So then the last 10 weeks of the season, they went 8-2. They were only giving up
yeah.
20 points per game, and they played man an average of 39% of the time.
Okay.
So what they did is they started playing more zone. And I think
Yeah.
when I saw that they traded Jeff Okuda this offseason, to me that signaled that they were ready to be different defensively, I think. Generally, Jeff Okuda is regarded as like a true man cover corner. And
Okay.
when they
That
drafted
makes
him,
sense.
that's what they think they really wanted to do. And he actually played really well to start the year. He's playing a lot of man coverage, playing pretty well. As they transitioned away from as much man and predictability, trying to mix it up, playing more zone, he struggled a little bit more and
Mm,
he actually got less playing
okay.
time. And so it makes sense that they traded him because I
Yeah.
think they went
Get
away
that
from what
value.
he does. Yeah. Because I think the rest of their defense was struggling from, I think, a predictability problem.
Yeah, that
The
makes sense.
Lions, they
50%
predicate,
almost. Yeah.
yeah, they predicated their defense on being able to play. Really, they play a lot of cover one. What you're going to see here
Yeah.
is what they're
Yeah,
actually
you can
playing on
already
this
see it.
first snap. Yeah, you got one high safety, and then everyone else is in man coverage, right? So they're playing cover one man like a lot the last couple of years, like pretty much since Aaron Glenn got there
Uh-huh.
as the defense coordinator, and it's made them predictable. Is the problem? Um, and as they went to more zone, less predictability last year, they actually got better. And I think this could foreshadow a little bit of like a philosophical change in what Aaron Glenn wants to do this year to make them a better team. So you look, this is a game early in the year against Seattle. They're playing all that man, and you notice when you're playing so much man, they run all these crossing routes. Alex
Yeah.
Anzalone, he
Whoa.
gets caught, and on a third and
That's a
you know,
far run for the backer.
yeah, and he has to run through all the traffic. And so on 3rd and 4, he essentially gets picked and you're just giving up first downs, right? That's tough. So teams knew, oh, it's 3rd and 4, the Lions are going to play so much man
Yeah,
coverage.
he's
Like,
on the hash and has to run to like the numbers before even getting anywhere close.
yeah, it's tough. It's a really far run. Again, you can already see, right? Now this is going to be man coverage with a too high look, but I think
Yeah.
they're going to end up doing it. If I remember that watching this right, they're actually going to bracket a couple guys. So one of them being Metcalf. So they're playing man everywhere else, but they're going to double. So you can see they're doubling Metcalf and then
Uh-huh.
Lockett, and they're playing man everywhere else. So this is like a cover 0, but
Oh,
like it's like a 2-man, but you're making it a bracket on their 2 best players. So you're going to double
yeah.
their 2 best guys and try and take them out. The problem is it's still true man coverage essentially everywhere else. Look what happens to Geno. So that's the other thing that was happening to them. Quarterbacks could scramble, get out of the pocket, and really create more plays
Yeah.
because you're playing so much man. Your eyes are down the field, are on your
There's
man
no one
downfield.
there. Yeah.
No one to see the quarterback. So even though they bring
Yeah.
5,
Oh.
he escapes, and there's no one else to go get him. So in
He probably
theory,
could
it's
have
a
got
great
more yards
defense.
too if no Fant had that block right there.
Yeah, and
He
and
just
in
kind of
theory,
like
it's
hooked him.
they covered all the guys, right? They did
Yeah.
everything like that you wanted to do. There was nowhere for Geno Smith to throw, but then if you don't get the sack, now you don't have
Yeah.
anyone to make that play on him. So here they are in the red zone again, back to cover 1, right? They play it even with the low hole, but
It's a good
you know,
roll.
yep, he finds the soft spot. They're playing 2-on-2 with the tight end wing here. Man coverage just gets beat. And that was the problem. You're playing so much man. If you don't have guys to be better than their guys, yeah, you're gonna get beat.
Yeah.
So
No
now
doubt.
this is the end of the year in Green Bay. So just to kind of illustrate that difference in terms of what they were doing. So we just saw them play like 4 straight snaps of man against Seattle. Different variations, but man coverage, right? It was whether it was cover 1 man or they're playing, a form of like poach where they're
Yeah.
doubling guys, but it's still man. now you see them late in the year against Green Bay. Green Bay needs to go score to win the game. This is at the very end of the game. Detroit's winning. Green Bay's got to score to go win it. And so here you go. They're playing Rodgers, right? See the too high shell?
Yeah.
Now they're playing zone. You can see the backers dropping out. They're
Yeah.
playing a lot
You can see
more
that guy
zone.
hugging the numbers right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they're playing like a too high. It looks like it's, could be quarters, could be cover two. I think they're actually playing cover two here.
Yeah, I think
So
so too.
now you're forcing, you got the two deep flat defender, three underneath players, your hook defenders, right? And so now you force Rodgers to be perfect because now he's trying to throw the rail ball over the corner, but before the safety
Yeah.
to Lazard. And he just can't. You got to be perfect.
Yeah.
They forced the throw out of bounds. So now you're not getting one-on-one. You're trying to fit the ball into zone coverage spaces. And again, you can see it from the behind angle, kind of what Rodgers sees.
Yeah. I was gonna
Right.
say, I don't know if it's just me or not, but I think Watson might have been a better choice. I don't know what it looks like from this perspective, but from the other one, it looked like Watson might have been the one.
Well, the tough part is he's got all these hook defenders underneath.
Yeah.
So it's tough to fit that ball in there because now you gotta get it over the backer, but under the safety. So he tries to make the really tough throw on the sideline, the rail ball throw, and just can't make it. Okay, so now we get to second down. Second down, they're still playing too high shell zone, right? You can see the push
Yeah.
from the mic right here because he's got three coming this way. So he's going to push over here. And again, they're playing this zone. Now, this flat defender, he's getting kind of caught up right now.
Yeah.
But even still, look, they forced the throw into the flat, and then Rodgers misses the throw.
Yeah. Hutchinson made it in time
To force a bad throw, right?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is their pass rush got better as the year went as well. I think
I
that's
guess it
actually
wasn't Hutch.
it was Kaminsky, I believe. And so now they get to third and long. Now watch what happens on third and long. They've shown Rodgers all kinds of zone, but when it's money time and they got to go make a play, what do they play?
Or
They
man.
get back to cover one. They get back to cover one. Now they're playing man again because they got him in third and long, and now they got that one free safety. Rodgers thinks he's got true one-on-one. He puts it up there, but the one high safety goes and makes the play, gets the pick to seal the game. So you can see how different they were philosophically. Yes, they played better, but they also they gave quarterbacks different looks. And then when push came to shove and they had to go get their best stuff out there, they went back to what Aaron Glenn really wants to do, which is play man coverage and bring a little bit of pressure, have one high safety free to go make that play. Look at Aaron Glenn on the sideline, juiced up right now. Look at my man. And good, he should celebrate because that takes a lot of work and growth as a coach to say, okay, what we're doing isn't quite working. We need to adjust. And
Yeah.
you make that adjustment, you see great results, man. That's awesome.
No, yeah, that was nice, no doubt. I mean, even that ending right there where you go back to simple man again that you always have been from, especially in that first half of this season, is pretty wild.
Yeah, I think you'll see the Lions switch it up a little bit more this year and be less predictable, and that's going to help them defensively, which will help them as a team.
And then next team we're taking a look at in this division is the Vikings. So they finished 13-4 last year, finished first in the division. You know, they smoked everyone basically. And then they lost in the wild card of the playoffs. I mean, all their games were all close. I mean, I remember for the longest people were talking about their point differential or whatever, how it was negative, but yet they were winning all their games or something, which is wild.
Yeah, really weird. They won so many close, like one-score games last year. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous. Looking at their team really turned over this offseason. They lost a lot of veterans, about as many as anyone else has lost, I think, this offseason. Just familiar faces, guys who have been in the building. First of all, they lost a pair of Dalvins, running back Dalvin Cook, D lineman Dalvin Tomlinson. They lost tight end Irv Smith Jr. Then some more just like names who have been around for a long time. Adam Thielen at receiver.
Yep.
Patrick Peterson at corner. Now, he hasn't been there for that many years, but in terms of being a veteran who's been there for a few years, who was important to that team, that's definitely him. He still had a great year last year, even as an older player. Another guy who's just been there, it feels like forever, Eric Kendricks at linebacker. They lost a pair of corners, Cam Dantzler and Duke Shelley. So they lost
Dang. A lot of
three
skill positions.
corners. Yeah. A couple playmakers on offense, Zadarius
Mhm.
Smith, Eric Kendrick. So I think there's just a lot of turnover. A lot of veterans are gone from this team. They did add some guys. I like Marcus Davenport at the D-line spot. The slot corner, Byron Murphy from Arizona, good player. They added a kicker or receiver, punt returner, Brandon Powell from the Rams, and then a linebacker, Troy Reeder from Los Angeles from the Chargers. So they did add some guys, but not nearly enough, I would say, to offset the losses. They added a couple pretty good players in the draft, though, right, Joe?
Yeah, we talked about this guy out of USC. They picked up Jordan Addison, a wide receiver, and then safety Jay Ward. So I mean, they lost a lot of skill positions I mentioned, but it seems like they picked them up back in the draft. I am
Yeah,
looking forward to that new duo right there. Our guy, hitting the gritty, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. That's gonna be fun for sure. What are your thoughts
yeah.
on these draft picks?
I thought Addison was best receiver in the draft. I made that case multiple times on the
Yeah,
pod. And I think he fell in a great spot in Minnesota. Him and Justin Jefferson are going to be dynamic.
yeah, for sure.
Um, they also added a USC corner, Mekhi Blackman, who I think can be a really good player. Sounds like he's projected to start right away. And
Okay.
then an interesting prospect, the BYU quarterback, Jaron Hall, as a backup to Cousins this year. So we'll
Hmm.
see what happens with that.
Yeah, I guess he has potential to become a starter next year. I mean, Cousins on that last
We'll see.
year of his contract. Yeah, true. Anything can happen between now and then. Let's see. But the management and coaching staff they got down in Minnesota, I guess I should say up. They're pretty north. They got general manager. Oh man, Kwesi Adolfo Mensah. I don't.
Hey, he has a great story. Have you heard his story?
No, I don't know nothing about him.
He was like on Wall Street. He was in finance,
No way.
but he loved football. He got a chance as to do like an internship with the 49ers,
Okay.
and he
Dang, that's
basically
crazy.
quit his six multi whatever money job he was making
Yeah.
in Wall Street. Like he was as a broker was making bazooka bucks, and and then just took this like internship with 49ers where he was making nothing because he
Yeah.
wanted to get into football, into management, and then just did so well. Like he's risen to power, obviously, and now
Yeah.
he's going into his second year as the GM of the Minnesota Vikings. So his story's
Dang,
pretty cool.
that's
If you ever get
sick.
a chance to look him up, he seems like he's I just think that's a sick story.
Yeah,
Not a lot
yeah.
of
I
people
mean,
can
that
say
should
that they
tell
were
a
like,
lot.
yeah. Clearly he loves football. So
Yeah.
I think
Big
it's pretty
football
cool.
guy. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy though. My man was on Wall Street.
Yeah.
Dang. I definitely gotta look that up after this. But
Yeah.
head coach Kevin O'Connell down there I gotta stop saying that. Offensive coordinator Wes Phillips and then D coordinator Brian Flores. Oh.
Brian Flores comes into his first year as the DC. I think fits really well with Kevin O'Connell. Should bring a different attitude, I think, to this defense this year. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what
Big
he
piece.
does. Um, looking up front, the Vikings bring back Christian Darrisaw at left tackle. They also have Vidarian Lowe backing him up. They've got Ezra Cleveland at the left guard, center Garrett Bradbury, right guard Ed Ingram, right tackle Brian O'Neill, and backing him up Blake Brandell. So not a lot of recognizable names up front, though this offensive line
Yeah.
has been pretty solid, I would say. Darisaw has been really good. Bradbury's been pretty good at center. Um, then you look at quarterback, obviously Kirk Cousins. They have
Mhm.
Nick Mullins as his backup. I'm not sure if you remember Nick Mullins from Minnesota or from San Francisco, but he'll be the backup this year for Cousins, and then Jaron Hall, the quarterback from BYU I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The running back room, really interesting now with the loss of Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, and Ty Chandler. Madison has filled in admirably when Dalvin Cook has been out, but Ty Chandler and anyone else in that running back room beyond Madison don't have a lot of experience, and so
Yeah, no
it's going to
doubt.
be really, really interesting. Madison's got a heavy load to carry. At receiver, Justin Jefferson comes back at the X, commanding a lot of attention.
Mhm.
TJ Hawkinson is a really good tight end.
Yeah.
KJ Osborne was awesome in the slot for him last year. And then Jordan Addison on the outside opposite Jefferson. Great
Mhm.
receiving room.
Yeah,
They also have
100%.
Jalen Rager, Brandon Powell, and Jalen Naylor as well to give them some depth at receiver. And also Brandon Powell gives them some stuff in the kick return, punt return game as well.
Yeah, special teams, you
Defensively,
can't let that one go. That's the third part of the whole game, you know?
as my college head coach used to say, special teams wins the
Wins the
games.
games.
Yep. Defensively, at edge, Danielle Hunter still there. I mentioned a lot of names have been gone. Danielle Hunter is not one of those. He's still there on the edge. Inside, also backing him up, they bring in the Army kid Andre Carter. Inside, they've got Kyrus Tonga, Jacqueline Roy, Harrison Phillips, and Dean Lowry. Then on the other edge, Marcus Davenport comes over from New Orleans, and they also have Pat Jones, the second, backing him up. So decent amount of depth up front. At linebacker, they've got Jordan Hicks, the will. Brian Asamoah, the second, comes in at Mike. Troy Dye and Troy Reeder, a couple of Troys, backing him up at Will and Mike. At the nickel corner, they bring in Byron Murphy Jr. Jay Ward, the guy they drafted out of LSU, will probably back him up. Mekhi Blackman set to start at corner as a rookie. Cameron Bynum has been pretty good at safety. Lewis Sine, the kid from Georgia they drafted a couple years ago, backs him up. Harrison Smith, who's been there forever, feels like 20 years that Harrison Smith has just been playing safety for the Vikings. He comes back for another year. Josh Metellus backing him up. And then at the other corner, they've got a Caleb Evans and Jojuan Williams. So this Vikings team looks very different from the one that won 13 games
Yeah,
last season.
that's for sure. I mean, yeah, just looking at the key losses, that alone tells you it's a lot different for sure.
Yeah.
And then, okay, one quick note that's really dumb before I get to this schedule. So right now, when you're going over the names, for some reason, this is the first time I thought about this after this whole, like 5 weeks of putting out these. I was looking at these names and just making up the first names, right? Just seeing what it comes to mind, like off rip. So like Murphy Jr. I don't know. I went with Trey Murphy Jr. And then the free
Trey,
safety.
Trey Murphy's a basketball player.
Okay. Well, speaking of the same thing, our free safety, you could probably guess who I'm gonna say if he's a basketball player.
Oh, Andrew Bynum?
Yeah. And then the corner,
Oh,
really
yeah.
dumb. This one's really dumb. Mike Evans.
All right.
So if I ever look lost, I might be
I'm,
stuck in
I'm
one of those
enjoying
rabbit holes right there.
entering. I'm enjoying entering the mind of Jody tonight.
But yeah, so the schedule that they rolling with this year. Week 1, they play the Bucks. That seems like a nice start to the season right there. Might be a little tough with their new look of the team, but sounds really really fun between the two. Week 2 though, it's not easy no more. They got the Eagles in Philly on a Thursday night game, so you get the short week and you got to travel to Philly. Sounds like a recipe for a bloodbath. Week 3, they got the Chargers at home though, but they got the Chargers. Week 4, they got the Panthers in where did they play? Charlotte? I don't know.
Yeah,
I
North
don't know
Carolina,
actually.
Charlotte. Yep.
There you go. Week 5. I'm assuming this has to be the hard stretch between 2 and 5, because then they got the Chiefs at home, but they got the Chiefs week 5. Winning the division doesn't sound fun at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Week 6, they get their first divisional game. They go out to Chicago and play the Bears. Week 7, it doesn't get any easier. Monday Night Football versus the Niners at home, though. And that's one thing I will say. It sounds like all these games are at home, but it's still not going to be fun.
Nope.
Week 8, they get their second divisional game versus the Packers in Green Bay. Then they get to go out to Atlanta and play the Falcons week 9. Week 10, they got the Saints at home. Then they get a couple not Monday night, a couple primetime games here, week 11 and week 12. They go out to Denver on a Sunday night, and then they play the Bears Monday night the following week in week 12. And then after all that, it leads them to their bye week 13. And then coming off the bye, they play the Raiders, who also had their bye in week 13. Then they get to play in Cincy versus the Bengals, another one that just doesn't sound fun. Week 16, they play the Lions finally. As we just seen on the last slide, they play them really late. Week 17, they got the Packers on another Sunday night game. So they also have a lot of primetime games as well. And then they close out the year in Detroit versus the Lions.
So, I mean, I would agree with you. I think that the gauntlet for them is weeks like 2 through 7 at the Eagles on Thursday Night Football versus the Chargers, at the Panthers versus the Chiefs, at the Bears versus the 49ers on Monday Night Football. Tough stretch, tough start to the season. I mean, conceivably, you look at that and you're like, okay, they win against the Bucks, probably take a couple L's to the Eagles and the Chargers.
Yeah.
Maybe beat the Panthers, probably lose to the Chiefs. Maybe beat the Bears, probably lose to the Niners,
Yeah.
right? That maybe split those next 2 road games, Packers and Falcons. If that's the case, you're sitting at like 4-5, through week 9.
It's tough.
And then it doesn't get that much easier. I mean, the Saints are going to be a good team this year. You got to go to Denver on Sunday Night Football, then versus the Bears on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
We could be looking at, say 4-8 or 5-7 going into the bye. Now you come out of it. Okay, you get the Raiders, maybe that's a win, but then you go to the Bengals. That's not easy. And then
Yeah.
three straight divisional games to finish the year. I mean, I would say this schedule is pretty tough. The easiest stretch is probably that stretch after the really tough one where, like week 9 through 14, Falcons,
Yeah.
Saints, Broncos, Bears, Raiders. Not like too terribly tough competition wise, but you get a team off its bye, you get a couple primetime games, you got to go to Denver. I don't think that's a fun place to play. Mile
No,
High.
I would agree.
So I do think this is a tough stretch for them. Yeah, I could see them really struggling out of the gate, maybe something like 2-5, 3-4.
Yeah. Gets hard
And
in the
then
first one with the first round seeding, or whatever you want to call it, finishing first in the divisions.
yeah, I think maybe starting 3-4, having a better middle stretch of the year, kind of coming out of the bye, maybe right around 500, but then getting to week 15, 16, 17, 18 with the Bengals, the Lions twice, and the Packers on Sunday night. I think that's a tough stretch of 4 games to finish the year. That's a recipe for like 1-3 to finish the year. And
Yeah.
if you're sitting, like I said, kind of around 500 and you finish that year 1-3, that's why I have them at
7 and
7-10.
10.
I just think the losses of they won so many close, fluky one-score
Yeah.
games last year.
That's true.
It felt right when they lost in the playoffs, honestly. And then 2, the loss of so many veteran players. I just think that's going to completely flip this year. I think the Vikings take a huge step back, honestly.
Yeah, I had them going 9-8 this year. I mean, a little bit better than you. I don't know. I think I just went with them being better in the division probably, and then. But I think this is best case scenario. Like 9 is like pushing their amount of wins. That's like if they're
Mhm.
on it every week, that's what they're getting. It gets hard. I mean, well, you
No,
mentioned it already. Eagles, Chiefs. We got Bengals. Like those are not going to be easy and probably not fun in general, especially after last year with them winning like by like 2 or 3 points week in and week out.
yeah, and I think, offensively they'll probably still be okay. I think they're gonna throw the ball a lot more,
Uh huh.
which could make Kirk Cousins more of a liability.
Mm,
Even though he has those other receivers, those guys are also good, but they're gonna rely on throwing the ball a lot more, so I think that could make things, show up a little bit. And actually, I mean, the big thing is just gonna be obviously we I mean, I don't wanna step on your corner here, but like Dalvin Cook,
Yeah,
I think that's a bigger deal than people maybe even recognize in terms of
yeah.
his loss and what it means to that team.
Would you say that Madison would have to pick up the slack for him being gone, or is it gonna be reliant more on those receivers to help get more production on offense?
Well, I think Madison's gonna be relied on, but I think they're gonna have to throw the ball more because I don't know that there's a whole lot of, like I talked about before, there's not a whole lot of depth at running back for them right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they got Madison and then dudes that I don't even know have touched the field, you know?
Yeah, I mean, so, like, I was looking at it. So, Alexander Madison has started 6 games over his career when Dalvin
Uh-huh.
Cook's been hurt. He has 117 carries for 477 yards, 5 touchdowns. So, it's about an average of 20 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown per game,
Uh-huh.
which is good. That's not the problem. I think the real problem isn't him, it's the depth behind him. Ty Chandler has played in 3 games for his entire career. He has 6 carries for 20 yards.
There you go.
Or Kene Nwangu has 9 carries for 14 yards. Those are the next 2 guys on the depth chart right now.
Yeah, it's not looking good. At least the
So
second dude you mentioned has an average of 3 something. The other dude though, yeah, that's not good.
well, it's just like these guys have a combined 20 carries for their entire career. Like, and you're asking those guys to probably give you a few carries each,
Yeah.
unless you think Alexander Madison's ready to just go take 25 carries a game.
Yeesh.
Even then, think about that. Like a team running the ball 25 times out of 65 snaps, that means you're asking Kirk Cousins to throw the ball 40 times.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Maybe for a game, but consistently over the course of 17 games, that seems really tough.
Yeah.
And just looking at like what Dalvin Cook did for them. You remember the game last year against the Colts, the famous, they're down 30 or something, 30-0 or whatever it was, and they came back and
Yeah.
won in overtime.
Is that the
That
game
game,
where Justin Jefferson had the catch? Was it that one? Or is that a different game?
oh, the super crazy catch. That was the Bills game. I'm pretty sure the
Okay,
one
that's
that
what I
you're talking
thought
about.
too, but I wasn't positive. Yeah, that's the only thing that rang a bell as soon as you said, "Do you remember this one where they came
Yeah.
back?" And that's the only one that made sense to me.
Well, and this is the thing is Dalvin Cook was incredible in that game. It was pretty much Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson that brought them back. So
Uh-huh.
I just want to go through all the production Dalvin Cook had in that game, everything he does for an offense. So you give him the little flip, and granted, the blocking was
Yeah,
incredible, but he turns that into a 40-yard gain. Maybe Alexander Madison does that, but maybe he doesn't. You know,
Yeah,
this is again, you could drive a Mack truck through this. This is a
yeah.
great play design, and also just the O line getting out in front and blocking for him. Awesome. There's Cleveland right there, picking him up. Here you
Yeah,
go.
this
Here's
is
another play. Run a little stretch zone, and he just gets up, gets through the hole. Again, this is
solid,
another
like,
like
20.
20-yard gain. So just in those 2 plays alone, he's got like 60 yards rushing.
Yeah,
You're like, okay, well, yeah, B gap zone.
a couple arm tackles gets through those.
Okay, here's another play. They go hurry up a little bit. I believe it's actually the very next play. Play action, throw the screen to him in the flat, and again, he can go
Follows
create
the blockers.
12 more yards. Now, that's the beauty of Dalvin Cook. You can go throw him the ball out of the backfield too. You can throw him screen, get him in space. The common denominator with all these plays is like Dalvin Cook, get him the ball in space. He's explosive.
Yeah.
He's explosive with the ball in his hands in space. He can make guys miss. He can run guys over. Now you can put him out at the outside receiver and empty, run him underneath everyone, get him the ball in
Oh,
space again.
easy.
Boom. Are we doing that with Alexander Madison? I don't know. Like I don't know
Yeah.
how they're gonna replace what they do, all the things that Kevin O'Connell was able to do with Dalvin Cook. I just don't know that, Alexander Madison and all those other guys are giving you that. Again, put him in empty. Now throw him the screen from the
Mhm.
outside receiver position. Look
Ooh.
what he does. Oh my gosh. Takes
I'd
this
like to
thing.
give credit to that D lineman. He's out there.
He took that thing yard, and by the
Oh,
way,
that's a back
that was the
bring, yeah.
tie. By the way, that was to tie the game to force the overtime.
Was
I don't
look
know
at the
what other
yak,
running back.
bro.
I don't know what other
Uh,
running back in the league right now is doing all that. I mean,
65 yak?
there's probably a select few that can do what he just did. And I'm not saying there aren't other good running backs, but there's a select few that can do what he just did. Go put him at outside
McCaffrey.
receiver, slow him a screen. Yeah, it's like literally it's McCaffrey. You know who I think is going to be one of them? Jameer Gibbs.
I was gonna say Debo for
Probably
fun, but I mean technically he's a
B.
receiver.
Bijan Robinson, maybe.
Yeah, true.
Like those are young cats, but you get what I'm saying. I just think it's tough to replace all the different things he does. You can see just in one game there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough for Minnesota to replace that.
Yeah, he definitely did a lot for them on offense. I mean, fantasy owners know about it, you know?
Hmm. Sure they do.
Uh, okay, before we talk about the Packers here, is he on a new team now or is he still in free agency?
As of this moment on June 27th, he is not signed with anyone.
Okay. Cuz I seen something on SportsCenter when I was at the gym, but they don't put the subtitles on SportsCenter. They do it for NFL Network or whatever's on where they're playing all the football like the Super Bowl games. So I never know what they're talking about. I just see what's on the screen, like the.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I had to ask. Next team we're looking at is the Packers. They went 8-9 last year, sadly, with the last year of having Aaron Rodgers there. Finished third in the division, and they missed the playoffs. I mean, if you went 9-8 and missed the playoffs, you ain't making it 8-9.
Yeah. Yeah, this team, another team that has some turnover. Obviously, like Aaron Rodgers
And his
staple.
crew.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers and crew who all went to the Jets. He said, "I'm going to take my ball and go home," and that ball happened to be Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Adrian Amos. All of those guys all went to the Jets with him. But they also lost Robert Tonyan and Mercedes Lewis at tight end.
Oh,
So they lost basically all of their offensive skill players outside of running back.
yeah,
So that group looks completely different this year, really. But they did add a couple players, couple safeties to Various Moore and Jonathan Owens. The Packers have been known as a team that just doesn't really spend in free agency. They really build through the draft. So
yeah,
those key additions in free agency, few and far between, not a lot going on there. Really, where they made their money this year was the draft.
yeah. So they picked up edge rusher Lucas Van Ness in that first round, which shocked a lot of people, including myself. Tight end Luke Musgrave, who we talked about, that's the dude out of Oregon State, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And then wide receiver Jaden Reed.
They also drafted another tight end, Tucker Kraft. Remember him
Oh,
from South
yeah,
Dakota State? So
Robert
we
Kraft,
like
yeah.
so we like both the tight ends they drafted. Both those guys were in our top 5 rankings. Or actually, I
Uh-huh.
think we ended up doing 6, right? Because I was
Yeah, you
struggling so
couldn't pick
much.
between the two, so like
So those two
let's
were
just
in our
add all of them.
two
Yeah,
were in our top 6 somehow. So yeah, they drafted 2 of them. So, but yeah, I think they got a lot younger in terms of the
for
skill
sure,
positions,
especially on offense.
and yeah, so we'll see what that looks like this year.
Yeah, so the management coaching staff they have gonna be general manager Brian Gutekunst. I don't know. That's a tough one. Head coach Matt LaFleur, offensive coordinator Adam Stenovich, and then D coordinator Joe Barry. Like, why can't we have those names right there, Joe Barry? Like, yeah, I gotta speak French or not French, like German or something to get these dudes' names out there.
Could be worse, dude. You could be Gronk. Shane Spikeman. Oh man, that's an all timer, dude. I think it's endearing when you get the names kind of not quite right, but like almost right.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's fun. We'll
You
get to
put in the
see.
effort to try to get it right, but then it's like
Yeah,
I still botched it a little bit.
a little bit. It's all good. I think you know Matt LaFleur. This will be a fun test for him this year,
Yeah, that's for
right? Can he
sure.
develop a quarterback? Can he coach a guy not named Aaron Rodgers? We'll see. I think he can, but I think people are waiting to see what he does. So what I will say is he's gonna have a great O line in front of him. David Bakhtiari, Elkin
Mhm.
Jenkins, Josh Myers, John Runyon, Zach Tom. That's a great group up front. Another great offensive line. I talked about the Lions' offensive line. I think the Packers have another one that's just very good
Mhm.
across the board. Got some more depth at tackles and Rasheed Walker and Josh Neiman. And then at center, Jake Hansen, another backup player there, giving them some depth. Quarterback, obviously, Jordan Love is the
Yep.
guy. They also brought in Sean Clifford to be his backup out of Penn State.
Oh.
Running back, they got the duo of Aaron Jones and AJ Quadzilla Dillon. That guy's quads are massive. I mean, I get why they call him Quadzilla. At the X receiver, they bring back Christian Watson in year
Yep.
2 for him, with Datavion Wicks behind him. Tight end, talked about it. Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft form a dynamic duo there out of this year's draft. They bring Jaden Reed in to play at the slot and Romeo Dubs to play at the Z. They're going to be just so young at receiver this year,
Yeah,
all first or
that's for
second year
sure.
players. Receiver and tight end for them are all first or second year players. It's going to be a really interesting experience and experiment with those guys, and then Jordan Love, who's going into year 4, but has like
Yeah.
never actually played.
It's funny
So
you brought that up because I was gonna say I don't want to be that guy and be disrespectful, but I was gonna say the same thing about Love being his first year, like starting.
yeah, yeah. Um, they're going to lean, I think, on at least early.
The running back room.
Yeah, those 2 running backs do a lot for them,
Yeah.
and probably will do a lot for them, especially early. Defensively, on the edge, you've got Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness as the young understudy there. Inside, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, TJ Slayton, Colby Wooden. And then at the other edge, Rashawn Gary and Justin Hollins. A lot of depth on the edge for them this year. I really like all 4 of their edge players. At linebacker, you got Quay Walker, Devondre Campbell, and Isaiah McDuffie. And then
Mhm.
at the slot corner, Keyshawn Nixon, pretty good player. Outside at corner, you got Jair Alexander with Eric Stokes backing him up and Rasul Douglas across from him. And then at the safety spots, Rudy Ford and Darnell Savage, and then Jonathan Owens and Tavarius Moore, giving them some depth behind those guys.
Yeah, 21's
We got to look
great.
at we got to look at that. 21. We got to look at that
Well,
schedule now, huh?
yeah. Well, I mean, he did change his number for like a day at one point in time to 21. Uh,
Darnell, he
yeah,
did. Oh, that's
yeah.
funny.
My mom, I think, has his jersey with that on there.
21 Savage.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
hilarious.
But yeah, the schedule you were talking about, they start off on the road versus the Bears.
Duh,
Classic.
Bears.
Classic rivalry right there, week 1. Gotta love it. Week 2, they're still on the road. They go out to Atlanta this time, playing the Falcons. And they play the Saints week 3 at home. As we seen earlier, they play week 4 versus the Lions on a Thursday night. Following that Thursday night game, they play the Raiders on a Monday night, so they get a little bit of time to prepare for that game. Should help them out a little bit before they face Jimmy G and the boys in Vegas. Week 6, they get their bye. That's an early bye, sadly, but at least it's not week 5. Could be worse. Week 7, following that bye, they play Denver in Denver, so they have to go out to Denver, play the Broncos at that away game. Week 8 and 9, they're at home again. They play the Vikings. Following that, they got the Rams. So by week 8, they get all their divisional games in. Better than some of these other teams where they don't play the team till week 16 and 18. Let's see. Week 10, though, they got the Steelers in Pittsburgh. That sounds like a tough game outside of Jordan Love starting this year for the first time. Week 11, they play the Chargers at home. Chargers, that sounds like a killer for most of these teams in this division, if I'm being honest. Hate to say
Mhm.
that, but that's probably just a fact. Week 12, they got the Lions again on that Thanksgiving game. And that one's in Detroit this time. Let's see, week 13, they got the Chiefs. That doesn't sound fun. The AFC West in this division sounds tough. Let's see, week 14, though, they got the Giants on a Monday night game. That Giants are coming off a bye that week. So that's a lot of time to prepare. And doesn't seem like it's going to be easy on that one. Let's see, week 15, they got the Bucks. Well, you can see the NFC South coming in here now, helping them out a little bit towards the end of the year. They got week 16 versus the Panthers in North Carolina. Then they go out to Minnesota on a Sunday night game, play the Vikings week 17. And they close out the year at home versus the Bears week 1 and then week 18. Pretty wild.
Bookend games against the Bears, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that looking at this schedule, you started kind of nailing it. Week 7 through 12, maybe even you add week 13 with the Chiefs,
Uh-huh.
is a tough stretch for them. They got to play road games at the Broncos, at the Steelers, at the Lions on Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
I mean, those could all three be very easily losses, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Just because those are three of the tougher road games. I mean, you got to go playing in Denver and
This
in Pittsburgh are
yeah, the
both
steel
so
curtain.
hard. And then
Yeah.
you got to go to Detroit on Thanksgiving when everyone is like pumped up about the Lions this year and thinks they're going to be
Yep.
really good. Those are three tough environments, I think. Then your home games are the Vikings, Rams, and Chargers, and then tack the Chiefs game on. That could very easily be like a 2-5 stretch in the middle
Yeah,
of the year
that's for
right
sure.
there. Very, very easily, probably likely 2-5 stretch just in the middle of the year. However, I would say that their first 5 games before they hit the bye are very favorable for
Yeah.
Jordan Love to get off to a great start. I would say at the Bears, at the Falcons, versus the Saints, versus the Lions, at the Raiders. I think that's a 3-2 start going into the bye week. 4-1, I
Ooh.
think would be like, whoa. I think would have people talking about Jordan Love, right?
Yeah. No,
I
no
think
doubt.
three.
I'd probably do the same thing.
I think 3-2 is probably more likely. Then they have that kind of rough stretch in the middle of the year, and then I think they can kind of crescendo and finish the year the right way with a couple more, Giants, Bucks, Panthers, Vikings, Bears. I don't think any of those 5 teams make you say like, oh, they can't win any of those games. Maybe they could win 5 in a row. Who knows? So I
Uh-huh.
do think they kind of have a good bookends, beginning and end, with a really tough middle. That's how I look at
Yeah.
their schedule.
Just jam packed from start to finish. It's a
Yeah.
I like that what is that called? Like a analogy? Is that what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Of the
They got like
bookend.
the bell curve. They got
Yeah,
the
yeah.
easy middle or beginning and end with a really tough the peak in the middle.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. Some math right there for you.
Yeah,
No,
there
I
you go.
mean, for me, going into predictions, I see it differently. I truly, we'll get into it after we talk predictions, but I don't know how I feel about Jordan Love. I'm just saying I doubt him in all cases. I had him going 5-12. You had them doing the same as last year, 8-9.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, normally I'm like, yo, you talked me into this team being better than what I had. I don't know if I could say that this time for once. I might feel like you talked me right into that 5-12 that I have, or maybe even worse. I don't know, but there's a lot of hope you could hope for with all these young cats coming in. The things to look forward to maybe a year or two from now, but at the moment it might be really rocky.
Yeah, I think I to call me crazy. I kind of think Jordan Love's going to be good.
I hope so. I would love for that to be the shock
I
of this
think
year.
the reason I have them going 8-9 is not Jordan Love. It's kind of everything else being so young
Mm,
offensively for them.
okay.
I think, and then defensively, I think they'll be good enough. I think they're going to hover right around 500. I still think Jordan Love will have growing pains. It's his first year starting. I'm not telling you he's going to be freaking,
Aaron Rodgers
perfect.
2.0.
Yeah, but like I could see him being pretty good. I think he
Yeah.
will be, actually. I mean, I think there's evidence, I mean, we're asking ourselves this question, so let's start pulling up the film. There's evidence on film that tells you he can be very good. A lot of people, I think, will point to the Chiefs game from 2 years ago and say, "Okay, that game was awful," right?
Yeah.
He went 19 for 34 for 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. That was the COVID Aaron Rodgers missed game,
Oh
and
yeah,
Love
he was
started.
immunized, huh?
Yeah, and Love started, and he didn't play that well. He really wasn't that bad. 19 for 34, 190 yards, touchdown and a
Against the
pick is
Chiefs?
not. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's not great. It was kind of mixed. However, last year, I think the game that made me say, "Whoa." I went back and watched last year. This was a game that most people probably turned this game off by this point. If you remember, this is a primetime game. The Eagles jumped out to a huge lead on the Packers. It got kind of boring. A lot of people turned it off. Well, later in the game, Rodgers kind of got like a not serious injury, but the game was sort of, it was like they were kind of in it, but not really. The score was tight
A
enough
little
that you can
lopsided.
see the Eagles had all of their best players still in
Uh-huh.
defensively. So it was tight enough that that was the case, but it was far enough away that I think they felt like Rodgers had this injury. They didn't want to push him, so they
Yeah,
didn't,
I
and
feel it.
they put him on the sideline. So Jordan Love went in. He went 6 for 9, 113 yards and a touchdown in the fourth quarter.
Not bad.
So I was kind of looking at some of these throws, and I was like, all right, what did he do? So here you go. This is his first play, right? Gets through the progression. Nice job checking it down to A.J. Dillon, letting A.J. Dillon go be a tank. Go get you 5 yards. Not bad for, a young quarterback to go through the whole progression, be patient, say, okay, I'll get it to my check down. I
Yeah.
thought that was really good. And you can see he went through all of the progression. He went from right to left in the entire field.
Yeah,
Got it
yeah.
to the check down. Okay, goes to the second play. He's patient, sees what he's got, knows what he wants, gets it to the out route. He's really authoritative and
Stop the clock,
gets
get
the
the
ball out of his
first.
hands, gets the first down. I like this. You can see he's processing what's happening pre-snap. He knows where he wants to go before he even gets the ball in his hands. Really good job. Okay. We get to the next play. We're gonna get
Under
a little
center.
play action here. Look, he
Ooh,
comes
Christian
out and he
Watson.
knows where he wants to get the ball. The backer is sucked up. The safety's trailing. Puts it on Christian Watson in a great spot where Christian Watson can just keep running and eventually scores.
Touchdown. Yeah, I remember that actually.
Good throw. I mean, put it
Yeah,
right on him so the dude could go score. I thought it was a
pretty
really good job
accurate.
coming off the play action, really selling the play action, drawing the backers in, putting it on him. It's a good throw. So in those 3 clips, did he do anything spectacular? No, but he was
But he did his
very
job.
efficient. Did his job. That's what I'm saying. Here's another drive, kind of 2-minute drill situation. Again,
Ooh.
finds Christian Watson over the middle. Very good job of, okay, I've got this guy hugged up on Randall Cobb. Let me see it from the behind angle here. Right? I know I've got man coverage. Let's get it out. Boom.
I'm
Or
glad
with
these are
zone and
like a
he was
nice
sucked
string
up.
of plays because I was nervous I was gonna start watching the Eagles D line.
Yeah, yeah. Here he goes. He goes to empty. Tries to make the rail ball throw.
Ooh.
Doesn't quite complete it, but I like that he's trying the
I
throw.
would blame the receiver on that one.
It
I
hit
told
Aaron
him.
Jones in the hands,
Yeah,
and you can see it right here. It's a pretty good throw. Like Aaron
yeah.
Jones, you would expect him to catch that probably 6 or 7 out of 10 times. Here he goes, empty again. Finds
Wings
his
it.
receiver in the zone. Allen Lazard gets him the ball. Hey, 2-minute drill. Let's get on the ball. Let's roll. He's functionally running the 2-minute drill. He's making great decisions,
And
making good
empty.
throws. Right. We're talking like 7 throws in a row that have all been great decisions, put the ball in the money. 6 out of 7 completions. The one was essentially a drop. Here he
Yeah.
goes. Now he's escaping. He's trying to
Scrambling.
buy time.
That
Oh, he makes a pretty
oh.
good throw. Christian Watson couldn't quite make the play for him. But even this, I like seeing this on film.
Yeah.
Extending the play, getting out of the pocket, making something there outside of the structure. We saw 7 straight throws within structure. This one's out of structure, doesn't
He
quite
hit
get
the
it
little
there.
sidearm on there almost.
But yeah, he's giving you a little something to be like, "Oh, okay, maybe something to be excited about." Here you go again. Make a good throw. Get it to Tunyon. Here we go. Let's get up on the ball. Let's go to the next play.
I like that. I made the catch, ref.
Yeah. I like what I'm seeing from Jordan Love on this film. I'm telling you. I think there's some stuff there that makes me say he could be pretty good this year. Much better than the way he ran the Chiefs game. Here you go again. Again, creating, buying time. Makes a throw. Another
Ooh,
one
is
where he
that
put it on a guy who could have made a catch. Randall Cobb couldn't quite make the play. This
you could
one was
argue that might be a flag.
out of all the plays, this was probably the toughest one for one of his receivers to make.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
again, running outside of structure, throws it back across his body. Probably not a well-advised throw, but guess what? He put it in there where Randall Cobb had a chance to make that play in the end zone. They end up settling for a field goal. So he gets 2 fourth quarter drives, scores 10 points, and basically we watched 9 throws, and he went 7 for 9 on the throws and, or 6 for 9 on the throws, and we would say that the 3 incompletions were all still, like, pretty positive. One was a
Yeah.
drop. The other 2
One
were kinda
was
tough, like, he's trying to make a play in scramble mode, and
uh-huh.
his receivers can't quite make it, but, like, it's there. So, I really think, Jordan Love's got a chance to have a really good full year as a starter. I see a lot of I hate to put this on him, but I see a lot of shades of kinda young Rodgers and what he did. I'm not telling you they're gonna go, Brett Favre to Jordan Rodgers again
Yeah,
with this,
yeah.
or to Aaron Rodgers again. I'm calling him Jordan Rodgers now.
Yeah.
To Aaron Rodgers
Oh.
again, but I do think Jordan Love's got some stuff to him that I liked when I saw in this film. I thought that was huge improvement from the Chiefs game to this game, and, I think in the LaFleur offense, he could be pretty good.
Yeah, okay, so I kinda realized now, but when I made the statement earlier, you were like, "Alright, I guess that's fair, like, you don't believe in what I'm telling you." And then now that you talked about him in that game, there's
I
a little
convinced
bit of
you.
hope. You
There's
sprinkled
a
a
little
little bit of hope for them.
I sprinkled a
I'm not
little bit in
saying
there.
yeah.
Let's
Uh,
go. You were like, "Hey, this is the first time you haven't really convinced me," and then
yeah,
I'm
and then
like,
you
I w
showed me
in
the
my
film, and
head,
it's like, "Man."
I was like, "Hey, bro, wait till I show you the film,"
No,
but I was
I
like,
seen
"Nah,
you.
I'm
You
not gonna
you
tell
did
him
that.
that."
You did the little head nod, like, "All right, bro, if that's what you wanna
Okay,
say for sure."
okay.
They lost most of their team. Yeah, for sure.
I think they could still be pretty good,
Yeah,
competitive. I'm not saying they're a playoff team, I'm not saying they're even over 500. I'm telling you they're 8 and 9, but I think that kid, Jordan Love, could be pretty good.
yeah. I I just looked at the prediction. I didn't even realize you had that low because you asked me for this team, for the Bears. Sorry for everyone listening. I didn't realize you had them doing basically what I thought the other team was doing before this.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah,
flip flopped on them.
we're flip-flop on the
I'm
Bears and the
big on
Packers.
Justin
Yeah.
Fields, the man right there on the screen. But
Alright, yeah,
last
I'm
year,
excited to talk it.
the Bears, the Bears, I gotta say it. They went
Hmm.
3-14 last year. Tough year. I mean, they picked up Chase Claypool in the middle of the year, and that didn't really work out. He's been getting clowned on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah, I have seen that.
But yeah, 3-14, not a recipe to finish anything better than fourth in the division, and of course, you're not making no playoffs at 3 wins.
Yeah, they lost some key players, though, in free agency.
Mhm.
David Montgomery and Riley Reef were both really good players that they lost. They're gonna have to find ways to replace those guys. Trevor Siemian at the backup quarterback spot, you know, you probably don't feel that one as much unless Justin Fields gets hurt, God forbid.
True.
And then N'Keal Harry at receiver didn't do a whole lot of anything for him last year, but that's another guy they lost.
Yeah.
Now, a big addition, obviously, they brought in some big names.
Yep.
DJ Moore at receiver, Tremaine Edmonds at linebacker, TJ Edwards at linebacker. Uh, or not Edmonds, but Edwards. Sorry.
Oh.
Um, yeah, Edmonds and Edwards. That's a tough combo, and Tremaine and TJ. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but at guard, they brought in Nate Davis, backup quarterback Philip Walker, um,
Oh.
tight end Robert Tonyan, stole him away from the Packers, the
Yep.
division rival, and then they did some work in the draft.
Yeah, they picked up offensive tackle Darnell Wright after trading back and still being able to pick him up. And then they got a D lineman, Jervon Dexter. So they beefed up their O and D line. Pretty huge. Helps, help one on one end protect our guy Justin Fields that I said I like, and helps maybe improve the running game a little bit. He's a right tackle, right? Am I tripping?
Yes, he's gonna play right tackle for them is what it looks like. They also picked up a couple sneaky names that I like. Tyreek Stevenson is a corner out of, Miami that
Okay.
everyone loved at the Senior Bowl. Another Senior Bowl
Mhm.
guy that got a lot of buzz, played really well in the Senior Bowl game too. And then, running back Roshan Johnson, he's the other Texas running back. that, everyone loved Bijan and
Oh,
rightfully
yeah,
so,
yeah.
but Roshan Johnson was good too, and they picked him up as well. They also drafted Noah Sewell, who, if you remember, we talked about, he was my
Yeah.
fifth best linebacker, mostly because the linebacker class was sort of thin, but I did like him out of Oregon, and
Yeah.
they got him in the 5th round. So
Okay.
that's another guy there. And then they drafted a D lineman, Zach Pickens, as another guy. So I do think they got some good value with some of the guys they drafted.
Yeah, and the people who made those decisions were looking at general manager Ryan Poles, head coach Matt Eberflus, offensive coordinator Luke Getzey, and D coordinator Alan Williams. I will say these dudes had some more simple names, but on the other half of it was kind of tough,
Yeah. So they come in offensively at left tackle. They bring back Braxton Jones, Larry Borum behind him. Left guard, Tevin Jenkins, pretty good player. Center, Cody Whitehair, another pretty good player. Right guard, Nate Davis and Jatire Carter. And then at right tackle, Darnell Wright and Alex Leatherwood, if you remember him from Las Vegas, backing him up. So decent O-line depth. I like Jenkins, Whitehair, and Darnell Wright. So I think offensive, overall, I think I like their offensive line. I think they got better, especially adding Darnell Wright. Obviously, at
Mhm.
quarterback, Justin Fields is the dude. PJ Walker backing him up. Everyone's projecting Justin Fields to have a much better year this year. I think he will too, actually. Mostly because of that guy they added at receiver, and I'll get to him in a
Yeah, yeah.
second. But at running back, you've got Khalil Herbert, Deontay Foreman they added in free agency, and then Roshan Johnson, who I mentioned they added in the draft. At receiver, DJ Moore at the X with Equinemius St. Brown backing him up. At tight end, they bring back Cole Kmet, and then Robert
Mhm.
Tunyon comes in as well to give them 2 tight ends for real.
Yeah.
In the
That's
slot, they've
true.
got Darnell Mooney and Tyler Scott. And then at the Z receiver, Chase Claypool, who you talked about, is now being made fun of on social media.
Yeah.
He may not be a reason for Justin Fields' success if you believe some of the
Oh.
numbers out there right now. We'll see. At the edge, DeMarcus Walker, Rasheem Green. Inside, Andrew Billings, Zach Pickens, Justin Jones, Jervin Dexter Sr. And then at the other edge, Trevis Gibson, Dominique Robinson. I would say that the Bears up front do not have a lot of recognizable names.
Yep. That's what
Um,
my thought was right there in that exact moment.
yeah, I think there's good players there. Not great is what I would say. They're good
Mhm.
players. I think the Bears are not making their money up front. Where they're going to make their money this year is at linebacker with TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds, Jack Sanborn, Noah Sewell backing them up. I think they have one of the better linebacking cores in the league now with those additions. At the slot corner, you got Kyler Gordon. At the outside corners, Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson, who I mentioned they got out of Miami in the draft. Terrell Smith backing them up. Safety, Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker have been pretty good there for a few years now. And then Kendall Williamson backing them up.
Yeah, I had a quick question. Do you think this is kind of like not anything significant, but do you think that Noah Sewell would like kind of transition to an edge rusher as opposed to backer, or would you keep him at backer to have more depth?
I think I would probably keep him at backer just because his hips are really tight.
Uh-huh.
And if you want a guy rushing the passer on that edge, unless that could have changed, but just on film, the film I watched, his hips were really tight, so he
Yeah.
doesn't turn the edge as well, and
Oh,
so
okay.
that just isn't a great recipe for you to be this awesome pass rusher. He's really like if he had played in 2001, he's like the perfect linebacker because he's such a downhill old school dude
Yeah,
um,
I
who
feel
can
that.
play. He can zone drop a little bit, but like where he struggles is like you play him in man or if you want
Uh-huh.
him to pass rush and stuff like that. So I just don't think that's really his deal. And that's why he was kind of like my 5th best guy. Remember when we
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about that and why I saw some deficiencies in his game. But
No, I
again,
agree.
if you're playing a run heavy team, go put that guy in there. Like he'll be a guy who can play against, like the Eagles. You're gonna see a
Uh-huh.
lot of run,
Yeah, I
or
feel it.
I'm trying to think of the run heavy teams in the league right now, but
Let's
um,
see. Probably
they
be like Niners or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of that old school downhill kind of guy,
Derrick
so
Henry, the Titans.
they're really yeah, I was gonna say, they're really like I said, the Eagles, but even the Eagles, we've talked about their offense, they're not just, like,
They're
downhill
dynamic.
run. Yeah, they do a lot, so there's not really an old school run team nowadays, but, yeah.
Yeah, so the schedule for the Bears, as we talked about in the last screen, they play the Packers week 1, except obviously they're gonna be at home, being that we're talking about them. They go to Tampa Bay week 2, playing the Bucks on the road. Like I said, the AFC West playing this division just doesn't sound fun. They got to go out to Arrowhead and play the Chiefs week 3. Then they get Denver at home, so that's a little bit better than most of their counterparts. Week 5, they go out to Washington. See, now that sounds like a good game. I know they had it last year. I believe it was also Thursday night as it is this year. So
Mhm.
that sounds really fun. Week 6, they got the Vikings at home. They also got the Raiders week 7 at home. And then, they got to travel out to LA on a Sunday night game. That doesn't sound fun. It could be really interesting, who knows, but Sunday night prime time, that's just not where you want to be playing a team like the Chargers.
Tough stretch.
Yeah. There it
Here it
is,
is.
little preview. Week 9, they got the Saints on the road, so they go out to New Orleans, play the Saints. Week 10, a little bit easier than most of the games that we talked about. They're playing the Panthers at home on a Thursday night game. They actually have a decent amount of games on prime time, considering they went 3-14 last year.
Yeah.
Week 11 and 12, they're on the road, so they'll be in Detroit week 11. Week 12, they got the Vikings on a Monday night game. That doesn't sound fun, but you get a little bit more time to prepare, I guess. Week 13 leads them into their bye. Week 13. Let's see,
A
week
much
14
needed
coming.
buy.
Huh?
It'll be a much needed buy, I think, at that point.
Yeah, for real. Week 14, they play the Lions at home. And then following that game, they got the Browns in Cleveland. That's a team that we haven't seen, checking out this whole division. So that's interesting. Should be fun. Week 16, they get the Cardinals, a little bit easier on them too, being that they also finished last. Week 17, they got the Falcons at home, and then they close out on the road. Like we said, they got the bookends of the Packers.
So I mentioned it while you were talking, but like week 8 through 12, weeks 8 through
Uh-huh.
12 is they have
Yeah, a lot of road games.
four
Yeah.
road games in 5 weeks, 3
Prime
primetime
time.
games, 2 of those on the road. So their schedule is going to be all messed up for those 5 weeks. Like you got to fly on the road, you got to play 3 games on different primetime nights. So you have a
Yeah.
Sunday night, a Thursday night,
Every
a Monday night.
possible prime time.
Yeah, it's just like so you gotta go on the road for Sunday night, then you gotta go on the road for the Saints, then you gotta go back home for Thursday night, then you gotta go on the road for the Lions, then you gotta go on the road to Minnesota for a Monday night. And that's why I said
Mhm.
that bye week is gonna be so important because they're just I mean, I think by that point they could just be like, okay, just get us to the bye. Like just we need a week to
Yeah.
stay home. And then I would say coming out of the bye is their easiest stretch where
Yeah.
they get
I
the
agree.
3 out of the last 5 at home, the Lions, the Cardinals, and the Falcons all at home. Now they do have 2 kind of tough, sort of winter road games at Cleveland and at Green Bay,
Mhm.
but against 2 opponents that I think I predicted both those teams to be right around 500, 8 and 9. So 2 opponents where they may potentially be able to beat them. Um, so in general, the schedule is not grueling, but there are some tough games on there. There's that tough stretch plus I would say, having to go to the Chiefs is a tough
Definitely.
game as well, obviously, on the schedule. So, I have them going 5-12. This may be one of the few times where I'm looking at it and I'm like, maybe I give them an extra game or 2. Maybe I actually think they're better than 5-12. It's kinda
Yeah.
just if you pick all the games, someone has to not be good.
True.
So even if you're like, "Oh, I like the Bears. I kinda like what they're doing, and I like Justin Fields," and it's like, "Well, then, like, do you like him more than this team?" And you're like, "Well, maybe not." And so if you pick all the games that way, eventually you end up with someone being probably worse than you even think. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
even looking, I'm like, 5-12, I feel like it's a little low for them. But when I picked all the games, this is kinda how it went. So I like the Bears. I don't think 5-12 reflects that as much as maybe I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
them, but they are still a young team. Fields is still coming into his
Mhm.
own. And I think as much as I wanna like their defense,
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
that might be still kind of the tough part for him, and that might be why I've got him sitting at 5-12.
Yeah.
So, I do
After you
think they're gonna
talked
be
about him, oh my bad.
fun to watch with Fields, though. That's why they
Yeah.
got these primetime games. That's the Justin Fields effect. 4 primetime games because he got Fields. He is electric.
Yeah. I will say when you were talking about the defense, I wasn't sold. I was like, I don't know any of these dudes. It sounds like we're talking all rookies out here. Like, granted, I don't want to make it sound that mean, but like, if you tell me who, name one, I don't even. Okay, it goes back to the first name thing. Like, I don't know any of those dudes' names off the top of my head, or even like possibly have heard it. So that's already not something good for that 7-10. I had them going. I will say if they're winning, it's probably a shootout. Justin Fields has to light up the stage and win one down the stretch. Because I don't know how I feel about that defense. But
Yeah.
we talked about it earlier with the receiver core. They got a new dude in town. How do you feel that him, aka DJ Moore, helps his offense improve from what they were doing last year?
Well, I think obviously DJ Moore is just a really talented player. You look at his career, he's been over 1,000 yards 3 out of his 5 years. He
Yeah,
went 888 yards and 7 touchdowns last year, playing with a bunch of different quarterbacks. So didn't
true.
quite get to 1,000, but like really close. Had the most touchdowns he's ever had in his career with 3 different quarterbacks playing: Philip Walker,
That's
Sam
crazy.
Darnold, Baker Mayfield. Like that's pretty impressive in itself. The year before that, he had 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns. The year before that, he had nearly 1,200 yards, 4 touchdowns. Year before that, had nearly 1,200 yards, 4
Yeah,
touchdowns. And then his rookie
consistency.
year, 788 yards, 2 touchdowns. So basically, since his rookie year, he's like a walking 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah,
Even with a million different quarterbacks throwing him the ball, a revolving door quarterback
yeah.
essentially. He's just a production machine. The Bears didn't have this is a stat that sounds fake, but is not. The Bears didn't have a tight end or a receiver over 600 yards receiving last year.
That's crazy. Makes sense though. I
They
had
literally they didn't have any guys who've caught more than 500 something yards passing.
That's wild. I mean, I believe it. I had Mooney on my fantasy team, and I had to get rid of him because he wasn't doing nothing.
I mean, they've only had 3 1,000-yard receivers over the course of the last 6 years.
Brandon
There are teams
Marshall.
who have had 3 1,000-yard receivers in 2 years, like they've had multiple guys do it in a single year.
Uh huh.
So, they've only had 3 1,000-yard receivers over the course of the last 6 years. I mean,
Oh, I don't know if he's
2 of
playing
those
in this
guys
one.
were Allen Robinson and one was Darnell Mooney.
That
So
makes
that's
sense.
that's it. DJ Moore gives them both a vertical threat as well as a like legitimate number one receiver that they lacked last season with the departure of Allen Robinson. You watch DJ Moore's tape, just picked out a game, that I liked from him with the Falcons game last year. You see him, he plays all over the place. Here he is at the bottom of the screen on this play. He just does so much. They're really trying to double him. They're keeping the safety over the top. He gets over the middle. Philip Walker throws a strike here, by the way, who's also coming over with him to Chicago as the backup. So if he has to play, they've got some chemistry. But throws a strike. He just gets in the teeth of the defense in the middle, makes everything look like a vertical. He's so good at that because he's so fast. People are scared of his speed. Here he is now in the slot with the stack, releases outside to come back in, just breaks
Yeah,
that
that's
safety
nice.
off. Oh, and he's just out in the open field running. Great play. You can see it really well from this angle. How he just releases outside to get this guy moving, and then you can see him come back into
Just
the
beat him
picture.
across his face.
Yeah, really sick little two-man route concept actually over there. Now he's at the top of the screen, back to the outside, a condensed split. He's going to get
Ooh.
outside of a corner who's outside leverage on the super deep out route, like the 15-yard out.
Yeah,
That's impressive to work that guy so well that he had leverage on you and you were still able to beat him across his face and get your feet in bounds. Again, nice throw by Philip Walker, by the way. Found myself impressed with Philip Walker on some of these throws. Now you can get him the screen. He can go turn that into 5 yards despite like 0 blocking.
Yeah, he was trying to create for himself for sure. Trying to get
Obviously, this
50 out there.
Carolina offense was not fantastic last year, and you can start seeing why. But DJ Moore was not one of those reasons why. He was the reason they were doing anything, really. Here he goes again. Now he's at the bottom of the screen, outside receiver, so he moves around a lot, which is awesome. Runs the deep in cut. Again, gets the ball. Now he's eating. He's signaling first down. You can feel it.
Keep
He's
it
feeling
rolling.
himself. Yep, keeping it rolling. Again, Philip Walker's like, "Where's my guy?" Giving him the ball.
For sure.
Get him the ball. He's eating right now. Now, at the end of the game, here's the Hail Mary throw. I mean, come on, double coverage. He gets behind the guys. It's literally a Hail Mary
The ball.
to tie the game. Literally a Hail Mary to tie the game. Again, what a ball, yes, but also DJ Moore's just the dude for making this play. In double coverage,
Yeah.
you can't guard me. That's the I'm him moment right
That's
there.
nice. That's nice.
So that's what we need to start doing, the I'm him moment of the week. We're going to do that this
Yeah,
year.
we gotta add that.
That's going to be a new award,
sure.
the I'm him award of the week. We're going to start doing that. That definitely would have got that award for that week last year. But yeah, DJ Moore, I think, just adds another element to this offense that they just really haven't had a whole lot with Justin Fields there. So
Yeah,
hopefully this helps Justin Fields elevate his game.
that's for sure, especially in the receiving game. Because I mean, he had
Yeah.
to do most of his stuff with his legs when they were, going into passing routes. But who knows, man? This is gonna be a tough division all
So
around.
in general, I just to recap, we both have the Lions winning the division
Yeah.
at 10-7. We don't think this division is going to be crazy because we have a team winning it at 10-7.
Yeah.
Then I have Packers, Vikings, Bears. You have Vikings, Bears, Packers.
Yeah.
Do I have that right?
They got us stumped. Yeah. Yeah. That's how it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So we're both very clearly split on the other 3 teams.
Yeah. But
They
the
have
Lions
all
is
of
a win
them.
sure thing.
Yeah, we both like the Lions to win it, and then after that, we're kind of unsure. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
seems
Yeah.
like it. Well, yeah, it's NFC North, man. It should be an interesting year.
We're at a loss of words for the NFC North because we don't know what's going on over there.
We got to get to the banger of the week, huh? Close this out.
Yeah. What you got for us?
All right, so I've got TV for you today.
Oh.
TV category.
Okay.
So I got to give some props. Not sure if a lot of people have it still or what, but like Apple TV.
Oh.
I'm a big proponent of HBO. Have
Yeah. Yeah.
HBO has just
That's
had
your
a
go-to.
run. HBO's had a run since like last August where they just always had something on TV that was good.
Yeah.
Whether it was House of the Dragon, White Lotus, Last of Us,
Succession.
Succession, Barry. Like they've just been killing it, right? They've just been
Yeah.
TV show to TV show to TV show to TV show. Unbelievable. They've been dominating Sunday nights. But I have to give some credit where credit is due. Apple TV has got some really good stuff on there right now. Currently I'm watching a show called The Silo, which is
Oh.
fantastic. It's like a dystopian, post-apocalyptic kind of dystopian thriller kind of deal. Classic, like, fascist regime. You fight the power.
Okay. Yeah.
Also watched another show called City on Fire. Pretty good, like kind of murder mystery sort of deal.
Okay.
Another show that actually I was kind of late to the party on, actually released like a year ago, but it's pretty good. It's called Severance.
I have
Thought
heard
that
that
one
one.
was pretty good. Also have a couple other shows on there, Shrinking, Platonic, that are both pretty funny. Yeah, so they just have, like it's just clear that they've spent a lot of money to get some of these people
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
these shows, but these shows are good. Like, I'm impressed. I'm kinda
Little
on
sleeper pick over there then, huh?
yeah, I'm kinda on Apple TV right now, I'm gonna tell you.
Okay, okay. The only
Yeah.
thing I know about over there is our guy Ted Lasso, and I heard that
Oh,
the
Ted Lasso.
newest season isn't really the business, which I
Okay, the
can't
newest
attest to because
season
I don't have Apple TV anymore.
the newest season compared to the first 2 seasons kinda went up and down, it was a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
choppy, but it finished real strong.
Okay,
So
that's good.
so I liked it. Yeah. Finished strong, which is all that matters. So yeah, Apple TV. Check it out if you don't already subscribe.
Yeah. I will say I have been away for some time. I haven't gotten to see that 3rd season as I just mentioned, so who knows? Maybe I have to pick it back up, but I got Paramount Plus like a week ago, so I've been over there watching Ink Masters. That's what I've been
Ink
grinding out.
Master, yeah, great
Yeah,
show, great show. Very entertaining. I agree.
yeah. All right, but we made it to that time of the show where we got our guy, the one, the only Ray Riley. But before that, my bad. Comment, subscribe. We got all those good things.
Come
Make
back
sure you
next
tell
week.
us what you want. Yeah, next week we're rolling
AFC
AFC
West.
West. Yeah,
All we've
one
got
more.
left, AFC and NFC West.
Dang, we're two more of these, and then we could free it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, big things coming though, for sure. We got
Big things.
we got Ray Ray dropping the album. Did you see that? He's dropping an album.
I did see that.
August.
Congratulations to him. Congratulations
Yeah.
to him. I'm excited to listen.
I might try to make that party, honestly. It
You
sounds like a
should
good time.
you should live stream from it.
But yeah, our guy Ray Ray taking us out. Hopefully we'll have some new music from him. Y'all have a good night or day, wherever you are at the moment.